Throughout the long and storied history of the British Isles, it has frequently been sang by millions across the globe that Britannia ruled the waves. And yet, it was not until she was conquered a sailor was selected to rule over her. But Sir Barry Edward Domville is no great hero of the waves, nor a conqueror of fair lands like his ancestors were. No, in fact Domville is perhaps the most hated man on the British Isles. A traitor of the highest order, and the captain at the helm of nothing more than a shackled kingdom. Domville's true purpose came with his infatuation with the far right, beginning at his visit to Germany in 1935, wherein after being impressed by the Nazi government, he was invited to the Nuremberg rally as a guest of Duchem von Ribbentrop, joining numerous Anglo-German organizations soon after. At the outbreak of the war, Domville spoke of the need for a bloody revolution, leading to his internment in 1940. But the revolution would come with foreign arms. As Wehrmacht soldiers stormed the British beaches, whilst being overlooked by Lloyd George government, he would be placed in key governmental positions in the subsequent British ministries, becoming something of a titan of the British People's Party establishment. Following Chesterton's failure, an upswing in resistance activity in Domville's good standing with almost all factions in government and perceived confidence made him the natural selection for Prime Minister. Now, after 6 years of steering the ship through dangerous waters, the consensus seems to be that a better job than most could have in his position. The economy seems to be steadily recovering, the nation seems to be growing more and more unified by the day, and the ghosts of the past grow even dimmer. And as for resistance, Domville's methods seem to have worked. After all, their activities dramatically declined since the 1950s. Perhaps this is the beginning of a new age. Or perhaps this is just the calm before the storm. And hello everyone, my name is Darth Mollicus and we're going to get into some TNO, also known as the New World Order. So this is a mod in what if the Axis powers have won the Second World War. Today we're going to be playing as Britain. Yep, so we're going to get into things and yeah, see where this goes, because I have not played Britain in this before. I'm kind of wondering what to play. I know they have a civil war and things, but alright, so welcome to the video, guys. We got quite a bit of lore here. I'm gonna go first through, a bit of the lore of the United Kingdom and where, what exactly happened. I think this is one of the more newer of nations in TNO to come out recently. I know it's been a couple of good months, but in fact I don't know when the United Kingdom got updated. I just know it's one of the recent-ish ones. We got the End of Dreams. On September 3rd, 1939, the United Kingdom and the French Republic declared war on the Third German Reich after their unlawful invasion of Poland. The Germans invaded through the Low Countries to bypass France's defences. After the failed evacuation of Dunkirk, Britain faced more losses in Greece, Gibraltar and Egypt. Even the United States' entry into the war didn't change much in favour of the Allies. Japan conquered its way across southern East Asia, with the British Raj on the brink of full-scale revolt against British rule. However, things began to line up as a joint Anglo-American invasion of Morocco was met with great success. As a result, the Allies refocused their efforts on North Africa. Thus was launched Operation Market Garden in late 1944, a military operation that was a decisive victory for the Allies. While this victory is something the Allies desperately needed, it didn't last long. We got When Hell Comes Knocking. In March of 1945, the Allies were invaded by the Greater German Reich. With more forces concentrated in northern Africa, the Germans easily goose-stepped their way through until they conquered all of Britain. They were stopped short of Northern Ireland, which was defended by a united force of soldiers of different nationalities. Brits, Americans, Brazilians, Uruguayans, and many took part in Northern Ireland's defence, with some wartime journalists dubbing it the Grand Defence of Three Nations. Try as they might, the Allies had no more foothold against the Nazis in Europe. Subsequently, the war effort collapsed. Market Garden's success were overturned almost immediately as the Germans and Italians took full advantage in their consolidated numbers. The last hope for the Allied effort and the war was gone. Now only a remnant of the disorganised Commonwealth and the United States were left standing. As the Treaty of London was signed, Hitler Hitler decided that Britain would be allowed to maintain the status of free nation under German guidance. The Prime Minister chosen by the Germans to lead in the immediate period after the war was none other than former Lloyd George, who died less than a year into his ministry, quickly being succeeded by Hastings Russell's Duke of Bedford, who established nominal political independence for the British People's Party, a newly formed organisation reorganised by the Duke, and the downfall of former leader John Becker. For the large majority of Jews in Britain, over 300,000 were taken from their homes and deported to the Reich, having not been heard from then or since. The chain of British New Order was being forged, but not much turned out to be needed to break. It was under this uneasy peace that followed the retirement of the Duke of Bedford in 1953, at the ascension of the hardline fascist A.K. Chesterton to number 10, that the real cracks in the British system began to show. It was during the chaos of the West Russian War that the resistance found their time to strike. Led by the former head of the British SAS, David Stirling, who had re-entered into the country covertly, the clock was ticking. The speed at which Germany was beginning to recover prompted Stirling to act quickly in attempts to break the government. And so, in late 1956, he called for a general uprising against the Chesterton government. Following several bloody engagements in the streets, in which hundreds died amidst brutal fighting, Stirling's attempt was foiled, along with the communist guerrilla Bill Alexander. Both were captured and brought before trials, which each lasted about 15 minutes before their summary execution. Following the bloodbath of 56, Prime Minister Chesterton found his supporters flocking to his fiercest critics, Andrew Fowling. Forced to resign, Chesterton and Lord Bedford nonetheless managed to secure number 10 for their mutual friend and confidant, Admiral Barry Domville, a long-time member of the fascist old guard. Under the Domville ministry, Britain's internal situation stabilised, leaving open the opportunity for the economy to flourish under the overseen hands of the German corporations. Britain has entered in the 60s into a stride with growth not seen since before the pre-war eras. However, under the thin veneer of what is Britain lies the dark reality. Resistance activities are climbing incrementally once more, and the British People's Party is splintered into three fiercely opposed camps: the pragmatists, the revolutionary ideologues, and the conservative old guards. Alright, so here is a bit more lore, guys, if you'd like to read through this. Talks about things, what's happened with, Oswald Mosley and the war movements and things. There's more here. I won't be reading through all of this, but I hope you guys have enjoyed the intro. Yeah, tally ho, we're going to move on to things. Destiny lies ahead. Got a few different national spirits, the British Free Corps. From the moment that the boots of the Wehrmacht first began the tri-pace of the British shores, it was known that they would need a class of collaborators which would help them in their efforts no matter what. Yes, so there is a bit about that online if you guys are interested in reading on, what these guys did and things. And we got the German corporate dominance. So Germany owns a lot of our industry, we're quite reliant on them. Across the Channel. The memory of Operation Sea Lion is still alive and well today in the minds of Brits, both young and old, and this is for very good reason. Nazi Germany was the first country in modern history to successfully conquer mainland Britain. It was not since the time of William the Conqueror, at the very foundations of our nation, that enemy soldiers had successfully crossed the Channel and defeated us. And yet our Air Force was shot out of the sky, our world-renowned Navy was sunk, and our scores of troops could not stop the advancing Germans from taking London. Terrible twins. So we've got Jack Jones, leader of the United Left Resistance, and Fitzroy MacLean, leader of the Special Operations Executive. The two figureheads of British resistance groups everywhere. The collaborated army and the secret police have desperately tried to hunt down these terrorists time and time again, yet they always manage to somehow elude our grasp, despite the entire country knowing their names and faces. We've got the Einspakt, which we are part of. Yeah, so we've got the Einspakt, which are part of the big German faction. Also part of the Mitsteirite. I'm not sure what exactly that is. We got our old British flag still, which is quite surprising. Yeah. So looking at our head of government, we've got Andrew Fontaine. So he rose through the ranks of the BPP with his unrepentant support for a fascist that spoke to the working man rather than the baron, eventually becoming the biggest opponent of Butler and the pragmatists. With his distinct base of support and undeniable competence, Fountaine was the ideal selection for Home Secretary. Now, as one of the most powerful men in Britain, and Domville's right-hand man, Fountaine can almost sense the flame he has been stoking for years, about to burst free and consume what remains of the old order. This guy tends to read a lot of books and things. He is he's the Foreign Secretary. Yeah, so this guy is a collaborator. You can feel the years starting to weigh on him, and as the dream of the Britain, both free and safe, that he has held for so long seems all too distant. So he is a what would you call it? He's a collaborator with a grudge. He doesn't necessarily want to work with the Germans. Then we got Edmund Wiesenmayer. He is the right plenipotentiary to Britain. This guy is a true governor of Britain. So yeah, this is basically like we're basically a puppet state, aren't we? Really, that's what we are. We are these guys are puppets, and this guy, or rather the Germans, actually rule over us. Alright, so come to my focus. We have a ghost of 1956. 6 years. 6 years since the uprising of 1956 wrought disaster and anarchy upon nearly every part of the nation. The Chesterton ministry was analysed under its weight. Fortunately, chaos was met by the combined forces of order, and with the joint pushback both of our army and our German brothers' garrisons, the uprising was crushed utterly. Since then, an uneasy calm has returned to the nation, and Domville's ministry, enlightened rule, has caused both prosperity to return to Britain, BPP memberships increase, and the extreme ideological split of the fascists and non-fascists in our party to become workable. However, all reports from MI5 indicate the same thing. Free Movement of Britain, also known as Her Majesty Movement. I'm not really sure what this is exactly, but it's Free Britain basically. You know, partisans. Partisan activity is increasing again, and the terrorists are beginning to re-emerge in areas where they have not been active since the uprising. We must not make the mistakes Chesterton did, and first we must begin to take preemptive measures. Yeah, we don't seem to have any military factories, which I think is rather strange, but we do have dockyards. Up there we go, it's appeared now. So we're going to make anti-tank equipment, rifles, what else we need? Trains, support equipment, motorized. I guess that'll do. I don't know if I'm missing anything to be specific, but I think we have a decent amount of equipment. We can't train an army or anything, but we do have seven measly divisions to hold off. Well, our own people really. Welcome to Britain. Here you'll find extra settings to make your game on the British Isles either harder or easier, where the category will disappear after the first hook is taken. Therefore, the changes laid out in this setting will take place. This enables more intense or relaxed playthrough. So I'm just going to keep it as it is. Heavy rain was hammering loud on the windows of Downing Street when the booming gongs of Big Ben rang out across London. 12 times, signalling the end of another day. That it was finally time for Prime Minister Barry Domville to go to bed. Running his old somewhat shaky hands over his face, Domville let out a pained sigh as he looked down on the report before him. A report which had mockingly devoured for the past 4 hours of his life, and all but ensured he'd be getting no sleep at all tonight. This had to be the third time he'd read it, from start to finish, but the sheer trepidation and dread he'd felt when he first turned the pages never left, and only intensified. Her Majesty's most loyal resistance. The name alone was enough to send a disgusted shiver down the Prime Minister's spine. You remember when he first heard it? In the very room, no less. So he was meeting his old friend, and then Prime Minister A.K. Chesterton in 1954. He remembered how they both laughed at the ridiculousness of it all. The very notion that some wide-eyed idealists, resurgence in Britain, and their watchful German allies. He remembered how the report continued in the years that followed, telling of secret meetings and covert raids, warning of a ticking time bomb ready to explode at any moment. And Domville remembered when it did explode, and the world came crashing down. Now that very same report he'd once laughed at sat right in front of him again. Setting the report aside, Domville reached for his telephone and dialed the German embassy. He would not make Chesterton's mistake and pay the price he did. Oh no. Now was the time for action. to man the guns and prepare for battle. The Admiral had one last war to fight, and he intended to win. Alright, so if I click on here, we have a special little thing. I'm not sure what this is, but it's called Workshop of the World. So we got the Dutch Bank, we got the Reichswerk, we got the Blonenvoss, AEG, and the Volkswagen, all in Germany. It's like their own regions of our country, which is quite the corporate dystopia, I must say. So the state owns 20%, the corporations own 30%, the private own 50%. Okay, and the Dutch Bank own most of our country. Okay, what's our economy like? 4% inflation, 86 billion GDP. Okay. Suppose we should do what we do best, underfund everything. That's what we Brits like, ain't it, mate? Austerity. We got trade, we got social. Not sure what this is, but yeah, we got people learning, I suppose, how to read. We got people getting pensions. We got an acceptable credit rating. Got two different events. We got the 1962 budget statement. I'm sure you guys are probably not interested in that. And then we got the 9 and day. Can both of you be quiet for 2 seconds so I can think, if you please? Donville snapped, slamming his desk for emphasis. Butler and Fountain stopped, looking at Donville. I'll consider some revision to the bill, as you have so helpfully suggested, he said, feeling that all too familiar thumping in his head. In the meantime, I'm going to ask both of you to get out of my office so I can think this over, if you please. And like two naughty schoolboys have bowed their heads and left. Okay, so this is about the budget, and yeah, the greater surveillance in public, and year prisons for curfew breakers. Yeah, things are bad here. You get arrested. At least unless you don't get arrested for Twitter posts, I suppose. Things could be a lot worse, I suppose, for the Brits. Hiding shadows. It is all well and good to say that we're planning to fight the HMMLR, but in truth, we do not really know who it is we're fighting. The only HMML we are, I'm just going to stop saying this. The only commanders we know of the identify of left resistance leader Jack Jones and SOE leader Fitzroy McLean. We also have virtually no knowledge of how many terrorists there are, nor do we know what weapons they have access to or how they plan to use them. Yeah, it probably comes from the United States, let's be honest. It makes sense in this time. Of course, I'll make sure you have the votes you need. Donville felt the crushing weight of the world lift off his shoulders for a brief moment as Gerald Wallop, 9th Earl of Portsmouth and the BPP's leader of the House of Lords, spoke, dispelling the cloud of worry and doubt that had plagued the Prime Minister since morning. Good, that's excellent. Thanks you, Gerald. This act will be key to ensuring our safety, I'm sure of it, said Donville, his old friend nodding in agreement from the other side of the table. I quite agree with these vagabonds need a damn good thrashing for our boys. One final proper kick to put them down for good, eh? Replied Wallop, stamping his cane on the ground for emphasis. And a good damn thrashing they shall get. Don't you worry, Donville. Don't you worry. Donville stretched as he spoke, standing up and making his way over to the drink cabinet to pour himself a glass of port. Okay, something the matter, Prime Minister? Wallop asked, as Donville turned to face him. No, nothing was the matter, he thought, shaking his head, tipping it back the port with a slight wobbling hand. All was well, the votes were assured, the problem of the loyalty of the Lords could be handled some other time. Whilst we do not agree with everything our German brothers, they did still liberate, in quotation marks, Britain, and are the unquestioned saviours and masters of Europe. Over the years, the garrisons become just an active part of the government as is any other. For these reasons, we will functionally need German approval if we wish to push back against the Free Britain movement, especially since we will require the garrison to assist with us. Okay, so Hitler names Bormann as his successor, and we get for strength. This is about Andrew Fountain, some law there if you want to read it, and nothing bad will happen, I assure you. Barry Donville sighed as he leant into the chair at the head of the briefing table room. Opposite him, Maxwell Knight stood, silently staring down the table, with Donville seated. The remainder of the cabinet sat down at once, their faces carefully blank as they all settled. Wiesenmeyer stared down the table from beside Donville, his carefully composed face revealing nothing but a slight aura of distaste. With that, night began. "Gentlemen," he said, addressing the room, "it's no secret to all of you that Her Majesty's Most Royal Resistance, or as they are all commonly known, the HMMR, is a target, known internal threat to our government. Following the Prime Minister's orders for me to expand our understanding of them and their weaknesses," Knight nodded towards Donville, "I have handed back this task to my most capable subordinate, Mr. Kim Philby. Mr. Kim Philby will be briefing us all today, Mr. Philby." Philby stood at his feet. "Thank you, sir. Now I'll be honest, the Resistance run a tight ship. We've all been unable to find much that we do not already know. Nonetheless, I shall lay out the facts we have already established. The loose alliance between the left resistance, led by Jack Jones and his Special Operation Executive under Fitzroy McLean. The two things uniting these incredibly diverse groups. The first is a figure who will only known as the boss. The second is a desire for a free Britain. Across all of Britain, on factory floors to old ramshackle houses, the people go quiet just for an hour. There's so many of them listen anxiously on their battered radios. It's time. Every Tuesday at 7 o'clock, Proto, a broadcast goes out. It speaks of the tireless work of Britain standing up to fascism, working past the failures of old-time men, and of a new better Britain emerging from the ashes, one not tied down by its failings, but pushed forward by its people. The broadcast, in fact, did not come from Britain. It was not from an old resistance general, nor an old politician from the war. In fact, it was given by a asthmatic former journalist, a man who now stands as the head of the X Party, Michael Foot. As he finishes his broadcast each week, he couldn't help but feel a tinge of guilt for hiding away in Canada, while the brave resistance member continued to fight in Britain. Okay, so this isn't released yet. The HMML content is not released. I don't know if when it's going to be released exactly, but yeah, we kind of forced to play the fascist Britain. But yeah, this is what the this little thing says. The Freedom of Security Act is the last piece of legislation needed to finally snuff out the resistance for good, which we have had a steady stream of support from the bill for the House of Lords and our German benefactors for months. The House of Commons has finally come to its senses and decided to pledge its support for the bill. It's time to take off the soaking gloves. We've been far too tolerant and careful in dealing with the rebels scurrying across Britain. With the momentum, resistance appears to have been gaining as of late. It's finally plausible to suggest that another mass revolt may soon be on its way. This possibility is one that we must smother immediately. We cannot allow those thugs and hooligans to tear down everything the British People's Party has built for the nation. Not now, not ever. God save the king. Next one night in the MI5 will be granted special powers to handle internal resistance for us. I don't like the sound of that. The entire system was a sham, a farce, a pantomime where the actors stayed on script and performed their assigned roles night after night. All disputes kept hidden behind the curtain to an audience who no longer bothered to watch the inevitable conclusion of the performance. The corpse of democracy shambling along its director's requests. But not even the producers of this morbid play let the theatre happy. Donville had every reason to celebrate the closure of another act. All his efforts paid off after all. Finally, the chains of restraining Britain's guardians had been broken down. Donville could have finally unleashed her defenders upon those who would do her harm. Perfect victory, but something was still off. Yep, so more of what we already know. The Second World War left Britain a charred husk of what it once was. A mighty empire spanning a quarter of the globe has been reduced to the Isles alone. Indeed, the woes of reconstruction, economic failure, internal division, seemingly endless resistance has made the British People's Party vision of creating a modern fascist Britain a titanic effort. With much more struggle doubtlessly to come, as 1962 dawns, it seems that we're left for much of the same. However, perhaps there's a light at the end of the tunnel. The passage of the FS8 will surely put an end to one of those woes, in the resistance at least. Perhaps this year will be different. Cracks in the foundations. Age really had worn down the old Admiral Donville. Been very easy before to surrender to the Germans, save the children of Britain. And now, he was here, constantly trying to fix what felt like a leaking ship. He could swear the end was in sight. He could not know how close it was. People were beginning to accept him. Perhaps history would look back on him as a hero. For now, though, he could only hope on his party, but seemed to be more active than ever lately. Felt like he couldn't avoid him, as he continued to nudge his way in. A vicious snake, surely. Donville could understand the look in his eyes too well. He aimed to replace him. Once he stepped down, it seemed not, even after a decade, under the new order, could not wipe out careerism from this blasted country. Still, he couldn't deny that Butler did good work. Yet, he looked back upon others. Butler was a naked careerist, but if there was anyone who understood the necessity of strength within Britain, it would be Fontaine, a man who had always fought for the fascist cause, in Spain and here. He was one of the first men to join him, but the men he surrounded himself with, to hear how they talked when his back was turned, considered him weak. You could tell they never voiced their fear towards him, no. He kept quiet, side glances, insinuations, with occasional muttered comment. Ah, to be young again. Perhaps he could straighten out things. Today, however, he could barely stand to watch the silent war playing out in front of him. He pretended not to notice. Keep calm and carry on. Eventually it will resolve itself. We get a few events here. Perfectly Unified Party 2. We're going to just continue on. Our problems. It seems there is precious little that the PP can agree with itself on. In both Commons and the Lords, the factions that decried the returned powers granted the peers following the war. Well, some seek to grant them even more, some see the German garrison as a threat to national sovereignty. Needs must. Okay, it's another event if you guys like to read. There's so many events popping up. I don't know which ones to kind of click off and click on. You know, I got 3 like just in a second there you saw. Burgundian soil explosions. Oh no. I just saw an explosion there, okay. I'm not trust those guys with a nuke. Okay, the Watchmen. So we can say under Fontaine, or we can say under Butler. An indecisive man for an indecisive party. Sounds like regular British politics. Oh. Someone needs to sort them out. Damn. Okay, 1 extra chaos. Can I afford that? Yes, I can. Okay, let's go for it. Thankfully, there were many in government who were both conscientious of nature's importance and willing to defend it. Wallop himself was one of the founding members of the Organist Kinship for Husbandry during the war. The government of Malaya has defeated the military government of Shonan. Nice, I guess. Okay, winter's coming. Hopefully this gets done before this gets done. Because if this gets done before this gets done, that's really bad. I think they're both gonna... Please work. Please work. Oh, thank goodness it worked. Transcript. How you can protect your community from coal hoarding. What is a coal hoarder? A coal hoarder is an individual in your community who by theft or bribery attempts to solicit coal. I just can't read it, guys. If you know someone who coal hoards in your community, obviously, they could be linked to terrorist activity, of course. Keep your community safe. You can do the following. Okay, now I can do speak with the unions or Bean's experiment. I know this increases ideologues, but there's no way in heck I'm not going for Mr. Bean. Mr. Bean, but he failed, acting school or something. Yep. Can't keep getting away with it. Now we got the upticks in activity. Though we made immense progress over the past decades, and especially in the last years, the resistance continues to plague Britain, inspiring crime and disorder across the realm. Many within our government have offered solutions on how to fix the issue and bring peace to the land. Each of these have their own struggles and weaknesses, and Hitler's just died. Damn, there's a lot of things happening now. We got Ding Dong, and we got Memorial of a Tyrant. Yeah, things have become just demilitarized randomly in my country. I wonder why that's happened. Damn, okay, there was a bit of lag there. I wonder what that was, but yeah, German Civil War's here. So it begins. I wonder who's going to win this crazy one. Donville. In light of the instability within both Britain and the Reich, I have been instructed to remain Britain until the situation at home passes. In this effort, the German garrison will remain in Britain, whatever the cost. Okay. Normal day in Wall Street. So yeah, we shut the markets now, so things are going to get pretty crazy. With all the bad news that His Majesty's government has been inundated with, it's time to ensure the biggest thorns of our side are dealt with. Well, the South African wars, everything's kicking off at once. It's really crazy. Pygmalion, I thought that's like an AI, but it's... Most aspects of Barry Domville's performance as a Prime Minister will be rated at 1. Okay, and it says here Ronald McNally Cain becomes leader of the... Arthur Ronald McNally McCain did not want to be in this position. No sane man ever would. Least of all, the man who enjoyed little personal popularity or recognition beyond his position as Foreign Secretary under Domville. But fate has a cruel sense of humour, as do the treacherous dogs that populate the resistance. Yeah, the fate of Britain lies in balance, and it's up to now Cain and his allies to prevent pure anarchy. Men and women of free Britain, radios across the Isle chattered to life, bringing forth a sentence to those tuned in. The so-called New Order, of which the fools of Europe have touted for years and years, have proven itself to be nothing more than an architect of our deaths. I'm sure those among you remember Cable Street in 1956 when our brightest hope was dashed by the clubs of Germans. I ask you to remember that day, but not to despair on it. Alexander Sterling gave our life for our cause that day, and out of it we moved to cover our resistance in the shadows. And now stepping forth with one of those shadows, remember not only Cable Street, but remember those across the sea that today resist. Remember our own people who were taken from their homes and have never returned. And most importantly, remember what Britain was once, before the fascists crept onto our isle. I ask you to hold these, but not to despair, for now we cry out revolution, revolution of our highest magnitude. Okay, so we get a, this will be our trial. We get some missions or something. But okay, this is actually the war itself. Humanity's territory collapses. How strong are they? 17 to 41. I have 35 divisions. Oh, this is gonna be pretty close. Oh damn, we got a new tree, okay. Our worst nightmare. Yeah, this is really bad. I'm not sure what to do about all this up here, to be honest. British Civil War, guys, yes. In the 2020, no, I don't mean the 2020s, but it's actually been funny videos about that. It's not actually funny, but it's funny that I'm playing this, and yeah, maybe it was brought up not too long ago, to be honest. Okay, we're now constrained divisions. That's cool. Not many though. Oh no, they all appeared. Okay, this is a nightmare. British Civil War. Silver Bell tolled. It comes. Yeah, this place is an absolute hell to fight in. It's horrible. Birmingham's encircled, okay. I didn't think I'd be saying that today. I think as long as we hold the air, we'll be decent. I'm glad I made air now. If I think I didn't make air, I think I would be in a lot more bother. I want to sweep up this south thing here because it'll make things a lot easier, I think, if we got rid of that. Okay, so everyone's just arguing with each other basically, because it's like a few of them go over here. Okay, it's currently 18k to 150k casualties. It's an insane ratio, I think, in a civil war. And this is really good. I like this. We got like a north front, which is really thin now. It's almost turning into Asian's War. Okay, I'm gonna try to take St. Helens. Take St. Helens, that's really good. Then we encircle Liverpool, basically. Oh. I don't think we're going to pull this off, unfortunately, no. But we are going to be able to knock them back from St. Helens as well. St. Helens. I keep saying St. Helena. Okay, we're winning. And Spear, I don't think it's winning. I think Ballman's winning, in fact. I don't know. So is this Christmas? Okay, I don't know why, but they just abandoned Kendal, so I can just walk into Kendal and literally encircle everything here. That's disastrous for them. I don't know why they just did that. AI be bad sometimes. I may as well just, you know, frontline this. I can just take them. I can just take them. Oh man, I feel bad. I feel so bad. I think next time, if we ever play Britain, we're gonna have to do the harder version. This version's way too easy. Our heritage. Right, we're basically taking Scotland now. It's just so over for them. It's so over for them. Yep, 99% capitulation. Here we go. Government prevails in Britain. Months of bloody fighting, the British government was unexpectedly regained control of the Isles. Its collaborator regime was widely seen as being caught off guard. And woefully underprepared, victory for the government seemed to be unattainable. However, after surviving a harsh winter and countless lives being spent, order has been restored. Okay, another event. Alas hurrah, rebel resistance is snuffed out street by street. Literally 1984. Defeating Free Britain. It's a reminder that freedom is just a mask of chaos. True power lies in control, and in a world of contradictions, stability is the only real revolution. Okay, we're just gonna keep going down things. Monthly unemployment keeps it is better. Oh, wait, I'm back in the German faction. Okay. Bomb on one civil war. Okay. Interesting. The German industry is part of the British economy. I love how my GDP is pretty much recovered as well now. But yeah, things are pretty bad, like economy-wise. Look at that. Minus 8% GDP. More and more these days. More and more these days. Now McCain. Now, more and more these days. Now Kane found himself time in the evening to just think. Let problems Britain faced fade away until it was just him and his thoughts, unburdened by the colossal weight of responsibilities. While we clearly have a sensible choice for Britain's future, we must not sit on our hands and simply expect people in the party to support us. Our supporters must convince them of our merits and offer a helping hand, financial or otherwise. Okay, so America's currently winning the Cold War, I think. The house may have been lost, but the memories would remain. Alright, so that's someone who's lost his house. Okay, so we've got John F. Kennedy in charge of the United States. I wonder how long he's going to be around for, eh? Well, future patriots now, which is going to give me low pensions. Slightly increased pensions. Okay, slightly increased pensions, and a military professionalism improves and training. Okay, but in the end, we've overcome it. And I must keep this brief to spare the time of millions, but we have come farther than I could have ever imagined. We as a people have rebuilt, made ourselves stronger than any man alone could have done. I must announce with great pleasure from all parties involved. Martial law across Great Britain will cease 24 hours from the current time. Do you think they will understand that one day, that they will ever stop judging us unfairly? Will they hesitate before replying? I believe they will, Your Majesty. It may take years and the benefit of hindsight, but I believe that one day Britain and her people shall understand. And you have my word, my government will work tirelessly to make sure of it. His Majesty's government has accepted me to form a government, and I have accepted. From day one of this new government, every facet of our power shall be channeled towards bearing the British people in their hour of greatest need. Okay, we got Rab Butler then. Charge of Britain. Rab Butler there, if anyone wants to read it. Yeah, we got our own focus tree, okay. Damn, Coronation Day. It makes me think of that silly Mario mod. For 2 decades, England's been ran by fascists. In his own right, Domville was a capable statesman that did the best he could, given the circumstances, but he was surrounded by lunatics. Fascist cretins and frothing ideologues seeking to drive everything we hold dear into the abyss. But nonetheless, Britain's preserved, England's preserved. A natural divorce. Now that smoke's begun to clear, we can finally address something we should have done a long time ago. Fascists were always an unsteady allies, a collection of unthinking grunts and soulless careerists that were useful idiots at best and actively detrimental to the nation's health at worst. Now that we find ourselves in Downing Street with a hefty majority, they seem much less friendly than they did before. Well, they can cry all they wish, they can leave the party, complain to their German friends, and decry Saul's Bolshevik puppets all they want. At the end of the day, we are the wheat, they are the chaff. The only downside to this that we were not able to do this earlier. While on new policies, we must introduce a true healthcare service for all of Britain, from the lowest family to the highest peer. All will have access to affordable care, not a single life will be lost to winter's claws this year. If Butler has anything to do with it, like a national health service. Cruel and heartless bunch, they certainly crumble quickly, so change the popularity of BPP. Okay. The ideologues are losing support. Ah yes, no need to worry, I got all under control. White paper is being drafted that shall pacify the workers once and for all. Wilson quickly rose from his seat. Well, I best
going now, but no, those policy papers don't write ourselves. Don't write themselves. Those policy papers don't write themselves. Firm handshake to dispel all doubts. Alright, just This guy's just holding some wine. What we do in the shadows. MI5 lies in ruins following Knight's betrayal. Most of its senior agents have defected alongside him, and the whole organization continues to be utterly riddled by HMLR sleeper agents. One man left who can, and has already done so during the uprising, to take up the reins of our shadowed intelligence service. Kim Philby. Fortunately for us, Philby is an ardent fascist, and known Germanophile. Whilst not the man we've been like leading the British intelligence, is the only one we've got. The workshop of the world. London was the very economic capital of the world, and with the economic might came economic prosperity. This era perished in the fires of the Second World War, raised to ash by the Luftwaffe and the destruction wrought by Sea Lion. In the 20 years since the end of the war, we have been unable to truly move past this ruin. That is to say, nothing of the further havoc wrought by the uprising. Yet let's take a step back. With Butler, we have the new government and a new start, an opportunity to remold Britain into a kinder, fairer nation. The road will be long and painful, but in time, a greater Britain will supplant the old one. Alright, I don't know how I feel about this. It's not that improvement, it's 0.15 growth and a bit of inflation, a bit of debt. To rebuild Britain into anything even remotely resembling a functional state, we must start from the ground up. Local government, the foundation of the state, is being thrown into despair under the haphazard authoritarian rule of previous governments. Fascist hubris surely knows bounds, for they believe far too deeply in their own efficiency. To remedy this, a new act shall grant greater fiscal autonomy to local councils and establish new laws surrounding council land owners. The Prime Minister will not sort of man who frequently found himself at a loss for words. Year upon year of orating, desperate appeals to sanity, and the Commons had done that. Even so, Butler found himself unable to find the right word for the strange but almost pleasant sensation that followed him today. Something the matter, Prime Minister? If it's Wilson modelling, I understand it's concerning, especially so close to your proposal. Just lost in thought, Agnes. Mr. Wilson and Mr. Maudling's vocal disagreements do concern me, but so long as they keep it within cabinet meetings, open discourse ought to be welcomed, not shunned. I'd agree, sir, replied the Chancellor. They aren't. It's beginning to trickle down to the rest of the party, both in the Commons and further. The share of the party without a strong opinion in favour of one man is dwindling by the day. The vision will only get worse. What Butler considered was that both men were clever enough that if he raised the matter with them directly, they could swear eternal friendship and turn their knives on one another the moment his back was turned. Focus on the proposal for now, but keep an ear to the ground to see if either of them had been reaching out backbenchers. Privately, he doubted either man would be so blatant, but it couldn't hurt. Either of them, for now, will have to come to the manor soon enough. Morty? Several hours later, after Maud had left, it finally struck him with a jolt that the feeling had been about Wilson and Maudling after all. Both men clearly had designs on the future direction of the BPP. A different man might have been nervous, but his lieutenant clearly wished to succeed him. As for Rand Butler, he realized he could finally name that strange feeling that he'd carried with him all day. Relief that one day he could rest at last. And on the behalf of the FL team, we thank you for playing. So I think this is the end of the British TNO path so far. So much to do, so little time. Britain, lying in a grasping, atrophied form, has paid the ultimate price for keeping the devil you know too close to itself. But amidst this forlorn epilogue to the history of free England, there still lies a chance for hope. If only it could be said for certain. The year is 1964, and Rand Butler has ascended to the greatest public office in the land. Britain now looks to the past, to the days of democracy ruled their fair isles. Yet Butler is old, a veteran of 40 years, and his successor, once certain, now stands unclear. Britain stands at a crossroads, and only time shall tell where it will lead. I mean, I think it ends well. I mean, I think eventually we might become a democracy of sorts. It'd be nice to think that, but who knows? Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and if you like the video, if you like what there was of the video, There wasn't much war, guys. I'm sorry. This is a bit of a Cold War mod. Lots of story to it. If you've enjoyed it, remember to leave a like and subscribe. I'd appreciate that. You can do either really. I don't mind, but yeah, it'll help me grow and create more future content for you guys. If you like it or not. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I hope you all have a good day or good night or good evening wherever you are, and I'll see you in the next one.